I've been thinking a lot about etiquette, and it's something I've touched on this channel before, but today I thought it might be fun if we looked at things that are acceptable in America but are considered a little bit rude in Ireland. Now, Ireland is not a very strict place, so if you do any of these things, it's not going to be considered a massive faux pas, and people are pretty accepting of the fact that people from different nationalities have different cultural systems and different manners and etiquette and stuff. The reason we're doing this list is because it's fun to look at stuff that is a little bit different in different countries. So if you're offended by this list, get a life. It being a list, it's also going to be full of generalizations. Not everybody does every single thing. Also, I try not to repeat myself on lists, so do check out my other lists to see if there's anything that you think I should have mentioned that I didn't hear. Before I get into the video, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. That is super important, and it's what makes the world go round. No, it doesn't. I've exaggerated. We'll get to that later in the list. So the first thing that is acceptable to do in America but not acceptable to do in Ireland is this hand gesture. You can't see that. Okay, so I have my middle finger up and I have my index finger up at the same time. In America, I see people doing this in photos, like, I'm going to use my pinky finger as a substitute. And they look really happy about it and stuff, but in Ireland, putting up your index finger and your middle finger is considered even ruder than flipping somebody off with the middle finger. So yeah, don't do that in Ireland. It's really insulting. It's pretty funny looking at photos of people gleefully holding up the two fingers because it just means a totally different thing here, but yeah. The next thing Americans do that can be a little offensive to Irish people is be very, very direct. I've mentioned before Irish people like to dance around a subject, and that's because we're very tactful. If Americans want to know something, they'll come right out and ask you, whereas in Ireland it's perceived not so polite because we like to ease ourselves into some of the harder questions. Questions like this would be, how much do you earn? How tall are you? What's your educational background?
I'm something of a scientist myself.
And it's not that direct questions are unacceptable in Ireland, it's just a case of we don't jump straight into it. There's an easing in that Irish people will do, whereas Americans will just come right out and ask it. So if you want to proceed with the Irish way, try and get to know the person a little bit first, or at least have the banter, which brings me to my next point. Banter is something a lot of American people don't get.
What?
In America, if you're doing a job like waiting tables or something, it's considered efficient to just wait the tables, ask for somebody's order, take their order, do the job. Whereas in Ireland, it's considered much more professional to have a little conversation with the person. It's almost a case of being super efficient and super polite is considered a little bit standoffish. Irish people like a little banter to feel at ease. So commenting about the weather or remarking upon a funny thing that happened outside in the car park is just banter, and it's good. Whereas in America, the person is just there to do their job as quickly and efficiently as possible. In Ireland, good service means being at ease with the person that is serving you, more so than being happy with them efficiently doing their job. Yes, you want them to do their job well, but you'll be more forgiving if you feel like you've got a rapport with the person. If somebody's very formal, thank you sir, yes ma'am, it's just considered to be quite distancing and not so jovial. In Ireland, we like to feel like we're mates. The next one, a lot of you guys have commented about, it's American people being loud, but I want to get really specific here. American people in groups don't strike me as very loud. I've noticed Spanish people when they're abroad can be very loud in groups, particularly students, whereas American people I've noticed tend to have one specific person in a group yelling above everybody else. So you'll have the mom in a family being really loud, or the kid in the family telling somebody all about a video game and you have to put up listening stat on a coach or whatever. So the whole group doesn't tend to be loud, but it's interesting how there's always a domineering voice in a group of American people, whereas Irish people will kind of look sideways if we see one person not kind of sticking to the accepted level in the room or on the bus, as the case was. That person will get this kind of look. Oh, but we'll never say it. We'll never say it. We prefer to just look at people like that. But we'll never confront anybody about being too loud because we're quite jovial that way. The next thing is a question that some of you guys asked me about taxis, and it's a case of in Ireland it's considered a little rude to sit in the back of a taxi if you're the only one getting into a taxi. I know you guys have Ubers and stuff, and so in this case I'm just talking about Ubers, taxis, whatever. But yeah, if it's daytime or whatever, you'll generally sit in the front of a taxi if you're the only person in there, because otherwise it's considered a little bit snobby. However, there is a little bit of a difference. Say, for example, I'm getting a taxi by myself late at night. I'll always sit in the back seat. And that's just a general safety thing. It's just a thing people accept to do after a certain time of night. But yeah, if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm jumping in a cab, I'll usually jump in the front seat. If I've something to do, I might get in the back because I've just got stuff to do on my phone or whatever. But yeah, it can be a little awkward if the taxi driver's sitting in the front and you're in the back and you're having the bants. So it's just easier to sit in the front. The next thing that Americans do that is considered a little bit rude here is talking too much. In Ireland, as I say, we tend to have banter, but this banter is kept pretty short. I'll say a thing, you say a thing, I say a thing, we'll laugh, you'll go away. Whereas I've noticed sometimes if you engage an American who's travelled here on holiday or whatever, they will tend to go into a big, long story, and as an Irish person, because we're quite polite about things like that, we'll stand there nodding and we'll throw them back some banter, and it's like we've given them a rope and they'll just keep on going. They'll just keep talking about their story, and again, it will tennis ball back to you and you'll give them another little line and they'll tell you more about their life. Now, I'm talking about two people who wouldn't be super familiar with each other, like a shop worker and a customer, or a person in a restaurant and a person eating in a restaurant. If you're with your mates, yeah, you go into stories, they go into stories, that's normal. But if a person who doesn't know you is trying to have banter with you, it's generally acceptable to throw them back no more than a short paragraph. Don't tell them your entire life story, no matter how friendly they seem or receptive to it. Again, there can be exceptions to the rule. Maybe you've just met and you've fallen in love and maybe that's the whole thing, but try and just be a little conservative about not going into a big, long story preceded by another big, long story. Just keep your things to short sentences and vox pops if you don't know the person. Another thing I've noticed Americans do here is keep their language very formal. So they'll say, excuse me, if they're trying to get past you in a shop or something. Whereas in Ireland, we'll say sorry. And we don't actually mean sorry like I've injured somebody in your family. Sorry is just the word we use, as opposed to excuse me, which is super duper formal. I've also noticed Americans use quite big words, like if a server comes over to the table. God, I'm talking a lot about waitresses and waiters today, but it's just a good example of bringing it back to stuff. So yeah, the waiter or waitress will be like, "Hi, is everything okay over here?" And an American person will be like, "Thank you, it's wonderful." Whereas an Irish person is more likely to come back with something really informal, like,
all good, thanks.
And this is again because we like to create a tiny atmosphere of being friends a little bit, but not too much. You don't have to, this is just a suggestion. The next thing is, if an Irish person asks you to do something for the crack, this is almost something you really, really have to do. So asking somebody to do something for the crack is like double dog daring them. If somebody says, let's jump out of a plane for the crack, and you say,
no, I don't want to do that,
people will look at you like you're boring. A good friend or colleague will know how far to push it with asking you to do something for the crack, but yeah, asking you to do something for the crack is something you're almost obliged to do with your friends. So, for example, if I was on a night out and we were just having a few drinks and somebody said, will we go for a dance for the crack? And I was kind of feeling like, oh, I don't really want to. I'd feel a little bit obliged, yes, I have to do it for the crack, or that person's going to go and say, I'm boring. That sounds way harsh. It's much more pleasant than that. But yeah, asking somebody to do something for the crack is like a double dog dare. The next thing is, if somebody asks you if you want to join them for tea in their house, don't feel like you have to say yes, or like this is an exceptional thing that they've asked you to do. If somebody crosses your doorstep, you're almost obliged to ask them if they want a drink or if they want tea. And a lot of times you don't really want them to stay for tea, but it's considered very, very rude not to offer them tea.
Go on, would you not have a drop?
No, thanks anyway,
Just a
Mrs.
little
Doyle.
cup.
I'm fine.
Go on.
No, really.
I'll tell you what, Father. I'll pour a cup for
Seriously.
you anyway.
I've seen this happen to another person, and then that guest stayed for hours and hours and hours, whereas the original invite was just one out of courtesy. Now, the person wasn't unwelcome, but it was definitely a cultural divide. They just invited them out of the sake of formality. So yeah, tea is not necessarily a thing that somebody really, really, really wants you to do. They're just doing it because it's tradition here to ask somebody if they want a cup of tea or coffee when they enter your house. Even if that person is a worker or a builder, you'll always ask them, do they want a cup of tea? I don't know why we do that. We just do. And the final thing that Americans are inclined to do, and I've seen them do when they come to Ireland, that is definitely a little bit of a faux pas here, is bragging. Now, bragging can be defined very differently in America and Ireland. And the reason for this is in Ireland, everybody tends to downplay themselves, take the piss out of themselves, even slag each other off and stuff. Whereas in America, talking about all the wonderful things that you've done and your accomplishments is seen to be something that you're proud of. And again, why shouldn't it be? You know, doing something great like climbing the Himalayas is a big accomplishment. But in Ireland, it's just kind of something you'll throw casually into conversation. You won't tell people about all the trophies and medals you've won. You'll kind of let them discover that by themselves. And that's something that makes people interested in you, because you're kind of discovering things about people as opposed to them telling you right up front all their accomplishments and achievements. Another kind of casual way I've seen American people do this is saying something like, oh yeah, I'm really strong, or oh yeah, I'm really good at that. Irish people just will never say they're good at something. They'll always let you figure that out by themselves. So to us, somebody coming in and saying that they're really good at something or that they're really accomplished comes across a little bit like bragging. But as with everything else on this list, we understand where you're coming from. We understand you've got cultural differences, but it's just out of human interest. I thought you might enjoy to hear what they are. Wah, Cool Whip.
Cool Whip. Cool Whip. Cool Whip. You're saying it weird. Why are you putting so much emphasis on the H?
So I hope you enjoyed this list. Let me know in comments what bits you found interesting and what you've noticed yourself. Today's video comes thanks to a number of people in my Patreon, and their names are in the description box below. Do go check them out. And if you see them, give them a big thumbs up in their comment box, because they're cool people, you know. Feel free to engage with one another in a respectful way. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you on the other side. Bye. I waved and then I said bye. Now Ireland is not a stringent place. So if you do any of these things, it's actually not going to be Now Ireland is not a very strict place. So have you got good manners? Licking people in the face is not good manners. Yawning at people is not good manners. And you often brag. Excuse you.